for both of you for reminding me. Okay, just announced it in my ear. We're good to go. Okay, so no worries. I'm just in a testing environment. We were formerly in the staging environment, which is a copy of your production agencies. However, it's not available today through the 23rd. So just note, you won't be able to do any practicing in staging for a couple of days while it's being upgraded to follow the production upgrade. Today, I'm in a different environment called configuration or config, and I'm just going to use this fake city called Omega. This is our development environment. So no worries about that. That's just a shift in where we're going to be doing things today, but no impact to you. I am, like I just mentioned, though, going to do a lightning tour of creating a new record because I don't have my test record here and I need that test record. So create new record. Notice we have a new record picker. In our example, we were doing a residential structural. Create applications, just a little different look and feel. By the way, you could just type up here, structural, start typing it, and the picker will reduce the filter down to the matching record types. So that can be super handy, right? Create the application. It is very, very important now as well with the upgrade that you maximize any window that you're using or some of the form fields. You can see it already, some of the form fields down here, or some of the form fields are going to be truncated, squished, as the non-technical term, right? They're going to be really squished. So in the upgraded environment, it is important that you maximize your window. Look at that, you guys. The forms are not going to be okay. I'm not going to be able to work in this environment, I don't think. Maybe. Sorry, we're just right on the verge of this huge upgrade we just went live with, and it had a major change in how the forms were developed. And so my apologies here. You can see here in the parcel section of the application, some of these fields, even maximized, these are still squished and they're not even really usable, right? I don't even know what this is asking for, these three fields here. However, to expedite our training and not lose too much time anymore, I am going to go ahead and kind of just try to tear through this application, despite some of these things that, we're in the middle of with our upgrade, and keep us moving forward. Bonus room, we said 600 square foot, right? My address, remember that I have to search. So I did the house number. Again, please don't worry about the form here with the fields being all goofy here. Hopefully, knock on wood, they are not that way for you in production. If they are, please submit a ticket. Making sure first, before you turn in a ticket, that the window is maximized. That is a requirement now for the form fields to display properly. So before you turn in a ticket, if you have this issue in production, please make sure that your window is maximized, because that'll be the first question out of everybody's mouth, because that's a requirement. Okay, so I put in my house number, street name, searching. It has a matching parcel and owner. I'm going to take them both, bring them both into my application. Again, this lightning tour, I'm not going to go slow here. My license type, I am going to go ahead and search for my same Ron Ped architect. Searching in the license professional reference data. Searching, there it went, okay. Here he is.
Kelly,
make sure yep.
We have a couple comments about the being truncated.
Okay, let me go ahead and just get my architect in here, and then I'll jump over to the chat.
Okay, and I did answer the Melanie question, so you don't have to worry about that one.
This long one? Do I need to go? Oh, that's the transcript. Sorry, never mind. Ignore me. Okay. Lisa, we have truncated cells even if we have the window maximized. So yes, Lisa, please submit a help desk ticket. The help desk is at if nobody has the URL or the address, actually I'll put it right here. epermitshelp.bcd@DCBS. I'm putting it in the chat. That's our help desk email. Submit an email to that email address, epermits, plural by the way, epermitshelp.bcd@dcbsoregon.gov. And I apologize for that, but you know, a major upgrade, their work, and we do our very best to test through everything and to have everything lined back up and kind of fixed and in order and things like that when the upgrade releases for us. And you know, there's still some things that you know, that we have to always dink with, new settings, configuration. Some things are customizations, you know, so don't be afraid to ask. And you answered Melanie. I just answered Lisa, because if they're maximized windows, and making sure, Lisa, too, and everybody on the line, that you have fully cleared your browser cache for all time. That could also affect your form display. So please make sure you've done both pieces before submitting a ticket. There are two arrows next to the help button. It expands the fields on my browser. Oh, there are two arrows. Where are you saying, Sarah? Let me see here. I want to try it. Next to the help button. Okay. At the top. Oh, look at this. So Sarah just pointed this out. Thank you so much. Hadn't even seen this yet, and nor have we talked about it as a team or identified this button. So here is this little double-headed arrow up here at the top I'm circling. She said she clicked that. And all of the forms are beautiful. Oh, Sarah, you rock. Thank you. Am I saying the right name? S. Beeler. Why did I say Sarah? I don't know. I'm so sorry. S. Beeler, thank you so much for that. That is fantastic. Stacy, Krista, had you heard of that? I haven't heard anything about that.
I didn't know about that, so that's neat.
And I haven't seen it on our team's upgrade chat. So hey, thank you, S. Beeler, Jackson County. You're awesome. You rock. All right, that's helpful. So Lisa, also try that double-headed arrow at the top of the form in case. If you're in a form, like a pop-up form like this, I don't know that you'll have that double-headed arrow when you're simply looking at a record. If there's any fields truncated in the actual standard record data. So for instance, if I were just, you know, to click into this record, no, looks like all the fields are good to go. But I also don't see next to the help button, I do not see that double-headed arrow within the record tabs. So just a note on that. Again, S. Beeler, thank you so much. That's fantastic. Sorry, I got to get back to my browser here. Where am I at? There we are. I need my intake form. There we are. So yay on that. Let me see. Other question. Krista, so Krista, you answered that. Lisa just checked another browser and it worked good. Sure. Might need to reboot. Excellent.
Not sure Melanie can see my response. I'm hoping she saw it when I tagged her again.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she says, I'm not seeing the chat. I don't see Krista's answer. You can maximize the inspection. Scheduling screens and names are truncated. How do we fix that? You can't maximize the inspection scheduling. Yeah, I saw your ticket on that, Melanie. Sorry, guys. This upgrade is a really big deal. I'm in Marion County production. I'm going to go ahead and go into just the inspections page. Melanie, you said the scheduling page. So for instance, if I kicked off scheduling, oh shoot. Actually, I lied. Let me just go into a record.
Is it okay that I turn my mic on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So yeah, just any which way you go to schedule an inspection.
So if I picked, I'll just pick an inspection here, preliminary erosion. If I go to add schedule.
See the name and the inspection detail below where you put in who the requester
Oh yeah, look at that. And next to help button, no double-headed arrow, double dang.
Yeah.
And not in here. This is a form within a form. And you can't maximize. There's no, like, I don't have a maximize button here.
Right. Yeah. So that's the one
So,
that's irritating for me because I use it all the time.
and you can't maximize it. So that's a different deal. I'm so glad that you pointed that out because, golly, I wonder. So we might be able to address this, Melanie. I don't know. This is a form within a form. You know, this is like a larger form here in the framework, the top part, and then you see the interior scroll bars tells us this is another form. So I think it might be worth us actually checking this interior form. Maybe it got missed. So I'm gonna take a screenshot. I mean, I knew what you were talking about, but I didn't realize you couldn't maximize. It just didn't, I don't know, didn't dawn on me, maybe didn't dawn on any of us. So we'll
It's all
take
good.
a bigger look at that.
And not being able to see the chat, should I log out and come back in? Because I was able to read
Yeah,
Krista's answer in your screen when you're doing this. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure what's going on with that.
okay, I'll just log out and come back in. And sorry
Okay.
everyone for taking up time on the inspection thing.
No worry, because everybody's going to be running into this today as you're in production. So, you know, in the best interest of our training, I still think this is very helpful information because as you're done with the training today and you go to work in production, you're going to be running into all of this. And I just want to make sure that all of you have the most current information, you know, at the tips of your fingers regarding this upgrade. Was there a question?
Yeah,
I
it's
heard
like,
somebody talking.
sorry, I need to turn my mic off. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay, no worries. Lisa, after what I typed in here, you don't see the chat either? I don't know what's going on with that, you guys. Is it maybe something I accidentally turned off? I didn't touch anything about the chat. I just said always let callers bypass the lobby. Don't announce them. I didn't change anything at all about the chat.
Lisa may need to log out and log back in.
Lisa can only see her. She can only see her own words. She can't see your. It might be you, Krista, or me, maybe, because I did put in the e-permit. So it's the replies. Something about the replies.
Okay, if it doesn't work, if you log out and log back in, then I will try leaving and coming back in and see if it's me.
Okay. Well, and me too. If she couldn't see Lisa, were you able, or Melanie, were you able to see the my reply on the help desk
They both logged
email
out.
address? Oh.
I'll ask them when we admit them again.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Just a little bit of technical issues this morning. Gosh, with our upgrade, you know, happening. Okay. Sorry, I'm still announcing them in my ear. All right, so we're gonna continue to kind of tear through our new application here. I added my licensed professional applicant. I'm going to go ahead and say as owner. Member phone number is required for applicants, and it rarely populates. So that is probably one of the most commonly missed fields in the intake form. I am not, because it's not required either, I am not going to add a second contact. I do have to fill in, I think I had put 60 grand on this. Remember the dwelling units and numbers of buildings, they're only for brand new structures. They maintain or they feed a report for your housing inventory in your jurisdiction. Number of buildings is commercial, dwelling units residential. Not going to fill in census code. Category construction, this is a single family dwelling. This is an addition of a bonus room, not a replacement dwelling. None of these things apply. I'm going to say no to fire life safety plan review, tentatively. The new building area was 600 square feet, a bonus room. The existing was a 2,200 square foot home. The house is 2 stories. I'm just making numbers up, 20 feet. No existing fire, but fire is not going to be included in this specific structural application. They may or may not apply separately. This is not a roofing application, so I'm going to go ahead and submit. I am going to go ahead and invoice the plan review fee and collect payment on it as we covered in the second session. Okay, did I miss something? I did. I missed something. It's telling me up here, very tiny, but it's there. Validation failed. See error messages. Oh, somehow or another, it didn't drop in the owner's first name. That was it. When I used the as owner click button, for some reason, it didn't have her first name in there. Now it's processing. It's going to create my new record. So you can see if you have a completed application, either the customer applied online, it's application only for structural, it's application only for new dwellings, it's application only for commercial structural, application only for manufactured dwelling placements. Anything that is structurally oriented, including commercial mechanical as the exception, are all application. Sorry, somebody joining the meeting. Still talking to my ear. I am not going to pen inspections. We talked about this is a very slippery slope, that if you pen too many inspections, it's a suggestion only. The contractor may or may not ever schedule those. Then you're left with those at the end of the project. The system will not allow you to final a record with any outstanding incomplete inspections. So then you're stuck doing a lot of housekeeping when it's time for final. So very delicate balance here with suggesting inspections or not. It isn't my recommendation that you do it. The final inspection will automatically add to the record as pending as a placeholder to make sure that the record doesn't accidentally final without any inspection. And we also sorry, somebody joining the meeting. And we have scripting in place that will look at final. It will actually look for a final inspection. And if there is not a final inspection, it won't allow you to close the record. So just a note on that. I think I'd mentioned it was just only my recommendation that you allow the contractor to select the inspections that they need and to schedule accordingly. And if they don't schedule something that's required, you advise them as an inspector. And if they schedule something that isn't required, you can result it as wrong inspection. So, you know, those contractors can be trained, so to speak. But, you know, they are licensed to do the work. They should know what inspections are required. So anyway, enough on that. I'm going to cancel out of that. I should have a new application in my record list. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. There is my new residential structural application. Again, flying through this to catch this record up for our test or for our training today. It automated the fees based on the $60,000 of contractor, keyword contractor submitted job value. This may or may not be the final valuation for this project. But at intake, I am still going to collect the structural plan review essentially as payment for the work that we're going to begin. Now, if this valuation isn't the final valuation, you'll collect the difference at issuance. So I'm going to invoice the structural plan review fee. I am going to go to the payment tab. These are all things we covered in the second training. I'm going to initiate a payment. Type check in this example. Throw in a fake check number here. I need a payer. We had talked about if the payer does not appear on the record that you would cancel out of this, that you would go to the contractor or contacts tab, quickly use new under manage contacts. The type, if they are strictly just a payer that we have added to the system, is called a build to. So I'll throw in the name here. Notice the required fields are very minimal. It's just the full name and phone number, really. So in this case, you could collect as little or as much as you want or need. Make sure you collect something, because if this check were to be stop payment, bounced, whatever, you need some way to contact this payer. Okay. Submit to save my new billed to contact on the record. So I'm going to return to the payment tab, initiate my payment again, put in, my payment details here. Hit the picker again for payer. There's Kelly Marshall, my billed to, because the check actually says Kelly Marshall. I'm going to submit. I could put a payment comment, don't need one. Saving that. It should pop up and automatically, look at that, guys. It should automatically pop up a payment receipt. There's my payment receipt. Use the controls in the viewer here to maximize and see that. It's your agency's header information, a couple of pieces of information specific to this application or record, what fee they paid, how they paid, and all the recorded payment information. You have the option at the time the document generates to email it. I'm swinging up here in the upper left-hand corner. It will put the contact, any of the people that are associated to the record will be made available to you for you to email to. Notice only one actually, this is a test environment. That's why we put nothing at nothing.com, so we don't accidentally really email contractors and whatnot when we're doing training. And you can also free text in an email, like maybe the husband or the neighbor wants a copy of the receipt. And you can even put multiple email addresses separated with a semicolon here as per the instructions. I'm not going to email it. I'm just going to X out. I want you to know that that's an option. Any document, AKA report. Those are actually reports, believe it or not. So you hear us call them reports. Is it the receipt report, the invoice report, where they're actually reports? Any of those things that automatically generate are automatically attached to the record documents tab. So if the customer walked out and came back, or a few hours later, or called you or whatever and said, oh my gosh, somehow I lost the receipt from leaving your office to getting to my truck, somehow I misplaced the receipt. You can go back to the documents tab and you can download this, print it, re-email it, whatever might be necessary.
We have a question.
Okay.
If they pay with an e-check and they don't provide a check number, instead they provide us with a routing number or checking account number, can we type in e-check instead? Will that work?
Okay, so an e-check is this payment method down here, ACH. Notice the check number field does not become required when it's ACH, but the comment does. ACH is electronic check payment, and here you might put routing or whatever. I have to tell you, Accela is not going to go out, to their routing, to their bank site and to their routing number, to their account number, and pull the funds. You will have had to have done that with your financial system elsewhere outside of Accela. Or you got some sort of, email notification that they paid through ACH electronic check. And at that point, you can simply, all you're doing here is you're recording that they did that for the record. So down here, I might put their routing information. I keep in mind that, to some level, you don't want to put their full bank account number or anything down in here. Ideally, I would avoid that as much as possible because that's very personal, identifiable information directly to their, their bank account. It could potentially be misused, just saying, by other people that might have access to the system. I'm not suggesting they would do that, but you don't want to open yourself up to that. In the comment, it might be most ideal to put some sort of authorization number, some sort of confirmation number, or what have you. Something that's just a little bit more benign, not so specifically tied to that person's direct bank account or something to that effect. Does that answer your question, Maricela? Great. Okay. So ACH electronic check. Electronic check is usually done directly between the customer and your financial system. You get some sort of notification, typically that an e-check has been receipted, and you can record it in Accela. Again, the comment will be required, not the check number. Okay. By the way, I'm in our testing environment, our fake city called Omega here. Some of you may or may not have this office drop down, so don't worry about this. This is only appropriate if you have separate physical offices. And we only have a small number, less than 5 agencies that have more than one physical office that they do business from. So just a note, very likely a great majority of you do not see this office button. Okay, so we got our record squared away. We're kind of back in action here. Workflow. We had started previously opening the application intake task. This is where we had left off with our training. This is where we're at. So I'm going to jump in kind of fast to try to make up a little bit of time here. So in application intake, it is the active task. Sorry, all my little scroll bars over here. I'm going to go ahead and close the task just to kind of demonstrate here. Up next, these are some of the remaining available tasks that we might end up using. Of course, the plan review tasks, we're going to have to decide eventually who needs to participate in plan review based on the scope of work of this project. This is the addition of a bonus room to a second story on a home, existing home. So we'll make some decisions here coming up as we train about who needs to plan review. Then at completeness, this is strictly an administrative task for the permit tech, generally speaking, to ready the record for issuance, making sure the plans are collated, stamped, and approved. You know, that there's a final copy of the plans ready to issue. Finalizing the issuance fees. So going back into fees, making decisions about the fees. In the completeness task, this is also where we finalize what valuation we are going to use. We're either going to use the contractor's submitted job value, or we're going to use the ICC calculator valuation. The calculator valuation only applies to new square footage other than in some exceptional cases of change of occupancy or tenant improvements. Okay, but if you just can remember, it's only for new square footage. It would not apply to an alteration, aka remodel. So if somebody applied for a residential structural application to essentially, gut their kitchen and build put a pantry in it, take out maybe a wall that they don't like, or whatever, to remodel an alteration, the calculator does not apply to alterations, because that is just changing the existing footprint, the existing square footage. Calculator only applies to new construction, new square footage, so the work types would generally be new or addition. And in those cases, you need to run the calculator to make a comparison to the contractor's submitted job value. We'll go over that in much more detail as we get to completeness today. Then we issue the permit. Inspection process is just a placeholder while inspections are being scheduled and taking place over here on the inspection tab. We make a decision once we get to final inspection. Does this project require a certificate of occupancy? C of O is required for any new square footage. So if the calculator applies, C of O applies. These kind of go hand in hand, calculator, C of O. C of O is because you have to grant occupancy, whatever it's going to be used for, you have to grant occupancy to the new square footage. So even if I'm adding a bonus room, I have to grant occupancy to that new square footage bonus room, and I have to say what it's going to be used for. And we do that in the calculator, so we'll be covering that. Then we close out the record. Okay, so let's get humping here. We will talk through all this. So application intake is our in-progress task. It's orange, which is always the active task. I can click the pencil, the double-headed arrow, or just click in the white space to expand and open the task. 100 scroll bars here in workflow, so I want to let you know. A lot of kind of scroll bars within scroll bars. Look, I'm like 3 deep here. So I'm scrolling down to see the task here. The part that you need to update is the new status or the status dropdown. Everything else defaults in. Notice the status date defaults to today. The user information, the action by, defaults to me. I'm the logged in user. I just opened this task, so it defaults to my user information. Now you can change that. So I want to make it really clear that if you are doing any data entry on behalf of someone else, particularly certified someone else's, like plans examiners or inspectors, you need to change this action by to whomever you are doing the data entry on behalf of. So if Tim, the inspector, gave you, did a plan review on this and gave you the information and asked you to data enter it into Accela, shame on Tim, he should be doing his own work. Did I say that out loud? I hear this a lot for permit techs. Sometimes my heart goes out to them because some permit techs that use our system have to do all of the Accela data entry for everybody, for the plans examiners, for the inspectors, and I just think that's too bad. All of those people could log into the system and participate directly in the software, entering inspection results real time while they're in the field. Plans examiners could see so much more information by logging directly into the system. So there, I did my little soapbox speech on those users using the system directly. And if you're one of them, yay, I'm so glad you're in this training and that you plan on using the system directly. It would be a huge advantage to you because there's a lot of other information here that if you're just passing papers back and forth through a permit tech that you are unfortunately going to miss out on that might be very helpful to your work, your plan review or to your inspection. Okay, so statuses. Let's talk through what these mean. So in the event that the applicant has not met your agency's intake requirements, whatever those might be, they might be you require 3 sets of hard copy plans. It might be that you require some added, maybe some local forms that you might require up front. It might be that, you require a checklist. City of Salem, where I came from, they required a checklist be kind of completed. There's a variety of things at your local agency level and just required in the building application process, like a completed application, for instance, whether it's electronic or paper. Just so you know, the electronic application does meet all of the wet signature requirements. E-permitting has an exception directly in rule that anything electronic inspection results, electronic applications, electronic plans, they all meet requirements with exception for e-permitting to be submitted, stamped electronically, signed electronically. You are not required to put a piece of paper out into the world with a wet signature. You are not required to put a piece of paper inspection slip result to the customer. You are accepted from all of that, and you have the option to communicate with the customer through electronic tools using e-permitting. So additional info needed would be if they did not meet your intake requirements. So some agencies shy away from using our online application as part of kind of our core product to the contractors, kind of our core promise, right? Because the contractors are paying the state surcharge. 4% of that state surcharge is providing agencies with the free e-permitting program and all of the free support for it, right? So the contractors have a vested interest in how they can use the system, and electronic or online application is very important to them. That's a huge time saver, as you can imagine. Might be for you when you do applications for things, in your personal life and whatnot. So they apply through online, for instance. They may still not have met all of your intake requirements. If they applied over the counter, they still might not have brought you 3 hard copy sets of plans or what have you. They can initiate an application online, and if you still require hard copy plans, then you wouldn't move the application forward till they actually brought the hard copy plans into your office or shipped them to you or whatever the case might be. So additional info needed. They didn't meet your intake requirements. As soon as I select additional info needed, notice I get a couple of little like burgundy notes here. Oh my gosh, these scroll bars, Stacy and Krista, you can't drag them, any of them. So you have to use the little arrow button to move. So additional info needed, it is requiring a comment. So I want you to know that, I'm going to keep scrolling down here. There is this email, what we call workflow notification email section here in the center of every task that loads in the workflow. These 3 columns represent people that you can automatically email whatever it is you're doing at the top here. So let's talk about that. When I select additional info needed, it is one of only 3 mandatory emails that are sent to the applicant of record. Notice as soon as I selected that status, this blue checkbox appeared next to the applicant. And I could say, I don't want to email the applicant right now. I just called them on the phone and told them already what they need to bring to us. So I don't need to send them an email. You can deselect that. The script is going to immediately recheck it. This is one of 3 required emails in the software for a workflow. And I'm going to tell you why I still think it's important to email them. Even though you just got off the phone with them, telling them what they needed, did they take good notes? Did they listen? Who knows? So following up with an email with the same information you told them on the phone is great. That's a good service. Because it is very likely, depending on how you either talk to them, and they could be standing at your counter, right? I mean, they brought this application in, let's say, physically to you at your counter. They brought in the application. They brought, they just didn't bring, they only brought you 1 hard copy of the plans. Your agency requires 3 hard copies at intake. So they didn't meet your intake requirements. So he's standing right there, and you literally told him, hey, I need 2 more hard copies of plans before I can process your application for plan review. And you already told him that to his face. Doesn't matter. When they walk out the door, who knows what they're going to remember, what you told them and whatnot. So as soon as you say additional info needed, this required email process kicks in. The comment field is the body of that email. So you will write in full, conversational sentences, whatever you would type in an email. I mean, you can even go so far as to say, hi, Joe. We spoke at the counter. I mean, you can put in here whatever you want. And reminder that we need an additional 2 hard copy sets of your plans to scale. Please submit those. Then you also need to give them instructions. If you're asking them for more intake application required materials, how do you want them to give that to you? If you're going to allow them to submit online, you would say, please submit those online using the included link in this email. And I'll show you what I mean by that. This email template that comes from workflow, using the workflow email notification section down here we just talked about, it includes what's called a deep link directly to this customer's application, directly to this 2232 structural application online. It includes just a direct hyperlink to their record. And it's very boldly, it's very prominent in the email. And there's actually a little bit of template language that says use this link to go online and view your record and do stuff. So you need to say if you are going to allow them to submit online. If you do not want them to submit these 2 sets of plans or whatever it is you're asking them for electronically online, you want to say, please submit these, required materials directly to our office located at, I know that sounds silly, but I mean, this is helpful to them. I'm just making that up. We do not, we do not accept electronic submittals at this time. Tell them not to submit electronically, because this mandatory email that's going to go out to them is going to have that big prominent direct link to their record online. And they're online. There's lots of intuitive buttons and things that say, attach your documents here, pay your fees here, do this here, do things online. So if you do not want them to submit electronically, anything that you're requesting from them through email, workflow email notification, you need to give them specific instructions accordingly. Now, this kind of comment, I mean, minus the hi Joe, right? Or minus the even we spoke at the counter. We can just start here. Let's say something is kind of more generic like this. Oops, I meant to take that out. I'll change it a little bit. Following for intake. Here, I'll change it a little bit. Make it a little more generic is all I'm saying. So in this case, this kind of comment can be saved to a comment library, because you might need to use a comment just like that over and over and over again every time somebody doesn't meet intake requirements. Now you might go, well, no, Kelly, because it's not always going to be 2 sets of plans to scale. It could be a moisture content form or a signed application, or it might be whatever. Well, then we'll create the comment like this in the comment library. And it says, please submit the following, oops, minus my big fat typo here, please submit the following for intake, blah, whatever, because it might differ from application to application, intake to intake. Please submit these required materials directly to our office. We do not accept electronic submittals. That's a very common generic comment that you can recycle and reuse over and over and over again. We call those comments that we could save to a comment library. We call them standard comments. So you see here that there's a link to that comment library. However, we need to build that library for you. So as you provide us with different kinds of comments, these are just examples. Building, what's in building? As you provide us with, let me move. With some of these, standard, frequently reused types of comments, we can plug, this is just an example, we can plug them into the library. Then all you have to do is click the comment ID. Comment has been added successfully. Great, look, it just dropped it right here at the end. It's right here. So the cool part about starting to build a comment library is it saves you yards of time, particularly for the permit tech. Anything related to intake that you find yourself regularly repeating when you ask for more intake type materials, or that you find yourself repeating it when you're getting stuff ready to issue. That's another very repetitive kind of conversation. When you're making things ready to issue, you might tell them, you might have actually kind of a canned ready to issue kind of statement that you use. Okay, your application is now ready to issue. Please go online to pay your issuance fees at the provided link. Or please do, giving them and how to pick up their stamped approved plans. Where? At your office? Is it electronic? You could tell them to download them on the Documents tab. We'll get to that and talk about a little more at completeness, but you get the idea here. You got to think carefully about what instructions you're giving them, what information you're asking them for, instructions on how to submit it to you, and maybe a timeline even. Please submit by Friday at, end of business, or, whatever you want to tell them. This will be the body of the email. I'm going to go ahead and use this example. By the way, that comment library, standard comments, that can be built over time. The way to add comments to the comment library is to submit a help desk ticket to us of those things that you find yourself constantly repeating. And then just try to kind of, make them, if they're maybe date oriented or anything like that, is just put X's as placeholders, for the in the section of your comment where something might be more you need more flexibility. But the rest of this comment's pretty standard stuff, right? So you could submit a help desk to us a ticket, and we'll add it to the comment library and make it available to you to very easily. Then everybody's putting in the same comment. That's another really cool thing about standard comments, is it starts to provide some consistency from permit tech to permit tech, from plans examiner to plans examiner, inspector, inspector. Comment library, by the way, is extremely powerful for plan review. So if any of you are plans examiners or do plan review, the comment library can be extremely helpful. Excuse me, sip of water, for you to add regular recurring kinds of plan review comments. Same with inspection. That comment library is available through inspections over here on the inspection tab. When inspectors result inspections, that comment library is available again. Note here, for any of you that might be doing inspections, we have built in the write it, cite it requirements for residential dwelling. So you could scroll through this already pre-existing comment library, and maybe the issue, was electrical rough-in. These are all of the current code citations for citing them, failing them essentially. When you fail an inspection as an inspector, you are required by rule to cite it, to cite the code section for the item that they failed. And so again, we do have write it, cite it built into every single production agency. So just so everybody knows, if you participate in inspections, work with your inspectors, you might want to let them know that this is available. This is super slick. It's available to them when they're resulting inspections, either inspections directly here in the back office on the record, or if they're resulting inspections through the inspector app that we provide. That comment library is available to them when they're resulting on residential dwellings. But that library is built by you. So as soon as you find that you are doing kind of repeat, saying the same thing, feeling a little bit like a broken record, or maybe even have a Word document of comments that you already cut and paste from. A lot of plans examiners already have that. And if you have that, that is your comment library. You just need to submit that Word document through a help desk ticket. All right, so additional info needed, one of only 3 mandatory emails sent through workflow. I put the information in here that I needed. I'll fix this again, 2 sets of hard copy plans to scale. Okay, there's what I need. It's going to automatically email to the applicant as soon as I say save. But before I leave this task, I want to show you that there is below the workflow email notification section, there is something we call TSI, task specific information. See, here's workflow email notification. By the way, before I lose my train of thought, these other 2, these are the people associated to the record. The licensed professional, I didn't put a site contact, the applicant, the property owner, and then I can free text in an email, by the way, of anybody else I maybe need to send this. I need 2 sets of plans emailed to. But I can also CC notify some of my internal coworkers. So maybe in building, I'm going to see, this is our test environment. I'm going to CC notify, these would be names of people, by the way, in your agency. Maybe you're going to CC notify your building official or the plans examiner, so they know that you've asked the customer for additional 2 sets of plans. Maybe the plans examiner had already got a call from this applicant telling the plans examiner to expect this application. The plans examiner is waiting for the application. Lo and behold, they did apply, but they didn't meet your intake requirements. So then you can also CC notify the plans examiner of record. So these far right-hand 2 columns are all of the people in your agency. You got to look for their names under the appropriate drop-down: building, planning, public works, so on. Third party would be any of your third-party folks, like building department. Are they building department LLC now? can never remember the names. And then admin users will be your finance and kind of IT type folks that don't really live in a given department. Okay, so back to task specific information down here. On potentially on every task below workflow email notification, there are additional pieces of information you can record. They're optional. Notice none of these have red stars, which means they're not required. And they're only for the record. We don't validate this information at all. So if I said, is application information complete? And I said no, because it's not complete. Right now, I'm missing plans. Is proposed work compatible with land use zoning? Let's say no, it's not compatible with land use zoning for this property. Maybe they can't build a 2-story on that house or what have you. It doesn't care what your answer is. It doesn't validate, in other words. So even if I said no to this, it's still going to let this application be processed accordingly. It doesn't care about the answers. These are for internal record keeping. Is the parcel free of open compliance issues? Yes. And these might be important for you to record. Maybe the building official wants to know that the permit tech is always checking these things. So these, and we put them here because in the building world, these are best practice to check on. So you can fill them out or not fill them out, but I want you to know that they are available. And almost every task in workflow has some sort of task-specific information. Now, that's in the building module. Public Works, I think, has maybe 1 or 2 tasks that might have task-specific information, and I don't think planning has any, because it's just a different, different type of process. In building, there's a lot of like little reminder-y kind of stuff, that might be important, that's actually consistently called out in the code. And so we can consistently put it on every record. It's not necessarily the case in Public Works and Planning. Okay, so I have my additional info needed. I am going to submit this to record my additional, oops, I missed something. Validation failed. See, error message. I missed something. Oh my gosh, I can't scroll. It's making me crazy. What did I miss? I probably answered something down here. Oh, so if you give an answer here, it likely will require some sort of additional information. I could say missing plan set. Sorry, guys, with this super slow scrolling, it's ridiculous. I can scroll up, but I can't scroll down. That's kind of strange. All right, so I'm submitting my additional info needed. It's sending, even if I told the customer over the counter because they were standing right in front of my face, it is still sending them essentially a reminder email. Not such a bad thing, right? So I'm going to go to my email because I put myself as the applicant. I got the email. Here it is. It reads additional information required for this record, and it will have your agency's information up here. Additional information is required to process your permit number at job site, list the address, see comments below. So for app intake, please submit the following for intake: 2 sets of hard copy plans to scale. Tells them how to submit, that you don't accept electronic submittals, which is, and this was just our fake example of standard comment library. If you have questions, contact. Now, it is going to put in your name and your contact information because you are the permit tech that recorded this, that told them they needed more information. It's also going to put in your department contact information down here at the bottom. And then lastly, here's that prominent deep link directly to their record. Your record is available online for tracking by clicking here. So again, the importance of giving them alternative instructions up here in the actual body of the comment if you do not want them to be submitting things here. Because the minute they click this, they're going to see all kinds of functionality about how to upload documents, pay online, and all kinds of other stuff. Okay, this is what that email looks like. So let's go back to app intake. Additional info needed. I asked them for 2 hard copy sets of plans. They came in this afternoon and brought them. Yay! They bring them to the counter. They tell us what their record number is. As a permit tech, I use global search. I ideally, right? We learned how to use global search to our advantage. I put in their record number, I pull up their record, I go to workflow, and I open the application intake task. And I can't scroll. I can't scroll down. I can scroll up. How weird. And now I need to receive. I need to tell the system, I need to tell Accela, I got what I asked for. I need to close the loop. And the reason that is so important for those of you who aren't familiar is building departments in the world are measured by what's called turnaround times, right? How long does it take your agency to get from application to review, from review to issuance, and from issuance to final? Your success, generally speaking, as a building department is measured by these turnaround times. If it takes your agency an average of a month to do plan reviews, that's not super great, right? I'm just speaking in generic terms as example. And that's a long turnaround time potentially, let's say, for standard turnaround time or average turnaround time for plan reviews. It might depend if it's commercial or residential and so on, right? But those turnaround times are a very important measure of building success, the process, the building process. And so as soon as I say additional info needed, the clock stops on our turnaround time reports, which means it pauses. So, which means your agency is not going to be docked for however long it takes the applicant to get you those 2 sets of plans. It might take them 2 hours, like in my fake example here, right? They came in that afternoon, same afternoon, and brought me the 2 sets. But it might take them 2 months. We all probably have that experience where it just is like pulling teeth to get a contractor or an applicant to bring in the information you need. And that time is on their part, not on the agency's process part. So you are not docked for that time. So the clock pauses when you ask for information, and then it restarts when you receive it. Because now the building process is back on you again. It's not on the customer anymore. They brought in what you asked for. Now it's on you again. And the measure, the turnaround time measurement starts again. It's important that you do this. Now, sometimes you don't even ask for information. We've probably all run into this, but a customer brings something in. You didn't ask for it, but they just brought it in. Now, if they just brought something in that you didn't ask for, then you would just do a received. You don't have to do a needed and then immediately do a received because you didn't ask them for anything. It wasn't from you. It wasn't your request as an agency. They elected to bring something in. Maybe they brought in a copy of their contract because they thought it might be helpful. Or, they kind of voluntarily brought something. If they voluntarily brought something in that you're going to scan in, attach their application, put in the bin with the plans for reference by the plans examiner, or give the inspector for help in the inspections in the field or whatever, then just receive it. And here's the cool part about that. As soon as you receive it, you can notify somebody internally. So if you receive something for the plans examiner, I can just say additional info received, and I could say copy of contract. I'm kind of jumping examples here. But then I could CC notify the plans examiner. This would be a name, but. And so I now have sent the plans examiner of record an email very quickly using the system. Sorry, my scrolling is just all over the board. Saying that a copy of the contract has been received and put in the bin with the plans. Okay, great. That just saved you an external email or a phone call or a walk down the hall to their office or whatever. You can CC notify them of things that you received. The plans examiner, the inspector, the building official, whatever, whoever. You can use workflow email notification to receipt those submitted documents, whether you ask for them or not. Now, in this case, we just received the plans. Right? And I haven't even made this ready for plan review yet, so I don't really need to workflow notify anybody. So I'm going to roll this back to select. I don't need to, I would check box the applicant if I wanted to tell the applicant or whatever, but I don't need to. I mean, sometimes workflow email, you don't need it. But I really want you to think outside of the box and using the internal email notification to save yourself, especially as a permit tech, lots and lots of time outside of the system having to notify people that you receive documents or whatever it is that you have. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and receive it to close the loop. Received. Sorry, just something's going on with the clicking here. Oh, and look, where are my buttons? There they are. And submit that. So I'm closing the loop, which is starting the turnaround time clock again. Now notice I'm still in my app intake task. So I received all of the intake materials now. Even if it closed, that's fine. It says received now. By the way, this header, this banner at the top, this header row does not refresh. Remember, that was talked about in the second session. It does not refresh. Workflow, every little move you make in workflow potentially updates the status of the record. So in order to see those updates, you're going to have to hit the refresh. I hit the refresh and the record status had in fact changed to app, submitted additional info received. Workflow is constantly feeding or updating the record status. That's why it is imperative that you process the workflow. We have some agencies that just bypass things in the workflow. They feel like it's extra time or whatever, and then the record status isn't right. Expiration dates aren't getting set. Issuance dates aren't getting set. And reports aren't showing accurate data because the record's missing so much information that the workflow puts into the record. So the workflow is imperative, okay? So we did received. Now let's talk about the other status results. That was the case if you did not receive your intake required materials. Now let's talk about the rest, what you might use these other options for. So app accepted. So in some cases, we have a front office kind of person, even a receptionist type person, or a greeter, whatever. We do have one agency I know down South Cresswell that the customer comes in and submits everything to like a front counter customer service person that isn't even part of the building department. And that person creates the record and they only accept the application. They don't do anything else. They just essentially flag this application, so to speak, that they did the data entry at the front counter. They put in here app received, and they use workflow email notification to notify the building team. They have a specific contact. It's actually a planner, in fact, in their agency, but they use internal workflow email notification to that front receptionist person that creates the record. Then they do app accepted, and they let somebody on the building team that, whatever the person is, they have like a specific person, they notify that person. So then building comes up, gets the application, and they start their part of the process. So app accepted is what we call a holding status, means it does not close the application intake task. It's just informational. You can use it to transact different kinds of, ways that you might take in applications. You might take in an application, even as a building permit tech, have all of the intake materials that are required, so the additional info is not needed. We got everything we needed, but maybe you're not ready to put it into the plan review queue yet for some reason. Maybe your agency has some other checklist kind of process at the beginning before you make a record ready for plan review. Maybe you don't know who needs to plan review it. So right now you're just going to accept it, and then you're going to talk to the plans examiner about who you should include for the plan review. So there's all kinds of different ways that agencies have these kind of handoffs, right? A front receptionist maybe hands off to the building department. So maybe app accepted and using workflow email notification to let the building department know a new app's come in. Great. That's slick. Or it's a permit tech that doesn't know who should do the plan review based on the scope of work. They don't have that training or that knowledge, or maybe they're even told not to do it. It's just not part of maybe the permit tech assignment at a certain agency or whatever. And so they accept the application and they workflow notify the plan review lead. And the plan review lead then takes over the record and makes it ready for plan review and makes a decision about who needs to do the plan review. So there's all kinds of different, makes and models of how building departments are set up in this kind of intake handoff type process. Now, I'm going to go through the typical process. It usually is the permit tech. The permit tech makes sure that intake requirements are met through additional info needed or received. Everything is met, all the intake requirements. I have a few other options. So app submitted, by the way, you'll never use. That's just what the record is when you first create it. App accepted is a different thing. We just talked about it. It can be a way for you to notify other people internally to continue to process the record, like a plans examiner lead, a planner, or even just the building department if you're a receptionist type person. Expired, obviously the record can expire at any point in the process. So maybe they applied, you asked them for additional information, and 6 months go by. They went ghost, you never get anything back. Well, 6 months is 180 days. This application will expire. So expired is in every workflow task. So is withdrawn. So I'm going to talk about withdrawn. The withdrawn is when the customer, this is always customer driven, when the customer withdraws their application. They don't want to proceed anymore. They didn't get the construction loan. They didn't get the full construction loan. They can't do it now. Something else came up. Whatever the reason, we don't care. Nobody cares. In terms of, whether you need to use withdrawn or not. If they're withdrawing their application for any reason, you would use the withdrawn. Now, void is only available on app intake task. It's not available anywhere else in the workflow. Void is when the agency created the record in error. So if you created this record in error, or even the customer, I'm not going to lie, I just advised an agency through a help desk ticket that the customer applied for a residential structural, and that's the wrong record type. They should have applied for commercial structural. There's no way to just change that. Because as soon as somebody selects the record type, the record is loaded very specifically with information that is specific to the type of record. So you can't just flip the switch res to com or com to res or electrical to mechanical or whatever. You have to create a new record and void the old record. So in that case, you might use void right out the door as well because the customer applied for the wrong application type. So you need to void this one and create a commercial instead, or whatever the case might be. Or in fact, you, permit tech or agency people, created the record in error. So void is a way to essentially say you created it in error. As soon as I select void, there are reasons at the bottom here that you need to fill in. They're generic, pretty generic, and you would just put a comment in. And also the same for, if I could get back up here. Also for withdrawn. Sorry, with my scrolling, it's making me crazy. There, here, reason for withdrawal. And this is just general record keeping. So, if you void a record or withdraw a record, it's very helpful to just record why. What happened. Okay, withdrawn available in every task. Expired in every workflow task because it can expire at any point in time on the 180 days. Now in planning and public works, the default expiration on a record is a year, but that is custom set at the agency level. So just a note on that. In building, there's those 180-day milestones that are written in the code. I can issue the permit directly from intake. So if for whatever reason this application does not require plan review, I can immediately just issue it. Now, in a residential structural case, that'll never be the case. But in some of the trade records, it will be for sure. Residential mechanical never requires plan review. Res electrical, it depends if it's 600 amps or greater, and then a good handful of maybe some other plan review checks that are in a drop-down list built into the application. Plumbing, 2-inch water or greater, and the handful of other things that are also built directly into the application. So if it doesn't require plan review, especially like I said on the trades, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, you can immediately issue them straight from intake. Don't need plan review. I want to let you know, though, that you can say ready to issue instead of directly issuing it. Ready to issue. Ready to issue at least gives you a pause in the process as a permit tech to maybe get the fees ready or on it or something like that. So you can still, it still skips plan review, but ready to issue will give you at least one step of pause to process fees or whatever the case might be. Maybe if you just need that, that pause in the process administratively to do some other work before you actually issue it, you have that option. Last but not least is ready for plan review. Ready for plan review is the result we use that will advance the workflow. So once all the intake requirements have been met, we're going to make this record ready for plan review. This will be the case in like 85% of your applications. Assuming they met the intake requirements, I'm going to immediately open this record. They paid the plan review intake fee. They met all the intake requirements, and I'm going to make it ready for plan review. Take out my comment here. Don't need that. Make sure I don't have any workflow notification because I was talking and doing a lot of examples down here. Okay, I don't. So making it ready for plan review. Submit. As soon as I say ready for plan review, the app intake task is going to close. Oh, well, first I have to tell it. Sorry, I jumped ahead. It's going to open what's called parallel tasks. You can see them in blue here. So you have to tell the system who needs to do plan review on this addition. So based on the scope of work, you have to make a decision about who needs to look at this, do plan review. The top checkbox will do a select all or a deselect all. So I know building has to look at it. And because it's second story, planning has to look at it. It's brand new square footage, so fire needs to look at it. And then maybe infrastructure, that's public works. Site review, additional review are totally flexible plan review tasks. They could be any group that might additionally participate in your plan review process. We have a handful of agencies that have like water and light companies, external agencies that participate in their plan review process, and they now use this additional review task for that water and light company to participate. All right, I'm going to just slim this down to 2, just so we don't have to do so much to move this record ahead. So just for the sake of training today. So I'm going to save my choices. And notice app intake turned green. And it's now in the completed task section. And I can minimize or expand that. I like it minimized because I like to just see what I have to worry about. Only the stuff I have to do. So we did ready for plan review. We selected which work groups need to do plan review based on the scope of work in our parallel tasks, and that's who it added. So now I need to assign these. So I open the building review task. I can use the assign button right here to assign this to, whoever. I don't think we have anybody else in the system. Here, I'll pick Stady Permitting. I'll pick like Krista, wherever she's at. JK, there she is. So I'll assign the building review to Krista. I could put a due date. This is becoming a little bit more, I'm hearing a lot more agencies that are using this due date field. So when you make assignment, you can set a due date. Maybe in your agency, you have a 7 to 10 day turnaround time requirement on all residential submittals, or something to that effect. I could tell you at the City of Salem, for what we called simple plan submittals, residential, we had a 10-day turnaround requirement from intake to approval. And if we didn't make it, your plan review fees were refunded in full. Very few agencies have policies like that, but Salem has what's called the 10-day residential requirement on new dwellings if it's a simple plan. So, I mean, there are just things like that that might be in place. So, nonetheless, you can set a due date. It will automatically default to today if you don't set it. Okay? And then I would hit submit to save the assignment. That task is now, if I scroll up and minimize it, that task is now assigned to Krista. And then I have to sign the planning review. Assign. That's going to be a planner, probably, right? Let's pretend I have to use Stadia permitting again because I don't have any other names. I'll use Stacy. And I'm going to save that assignment. Now, the power of the assignment and the importance. I have so many agencies that are like, Kelly, we only have one plans examiner. It's the building official. We're a 3-person show. That's it. Or even a 1-person show sometimes. And a third-party inspector and third-party plans examiners or what have you. It doesn't negate the importance of this assignment. So those people will still be users, whether the third-party building official or whoever it is. And the importance of assigning these is so that they can see that information in their task list, in their assignments. If you don't assign it, you start to lose track over how many plans your building official has in the queue. You know, it's harder to see and track unassigned work. So I'm in workflow tasks. I can look at assigned building reviews. So I can see that all these reviews on various applications have been assigned to the staff in this column. You can see over here. And in fact, and then now in the My Task list, remember one of the huge, benefits of this is I can sort. So I can sort these by due date, oldest to newest, newest to oldest. Here's my building review at the very top here that I just assigned to Krista. So, excuse me, so assigned work is 100% easier to track. It is also easier to report on. If I assign reviews to, even if it's the same person, because you only have one plans examiner, I can report on how many plan reviews Tim had this year or this month or what have you. Unassigned stuff is way harder to track and report on. And then if you have more than one person, more than one plans examiner, more than one inspector, so to speak, those are things that are assigned, right? Plan reviews and plan reviews are in the workflow task tab and inspections in the inspection tab. That's why they're on the my task page, because these are the 4 assignment areas where you assign work. Workflow is one of them where you assign work. You assign plan reviews, like on our record. We just assign these 2 plan reviews. Now, if you have more than one person, like in this case, for example, or more than one plans examiner or a planner versus building, you can start to track volume of work, turnaround time, due dates, and things like that by the individual inspector or individual plans examiner. You can see that Stacy did 15 plans this month and Krista did 10 plans this month. You can start to see a lot of work, task kind of reporting. That's very helpful. Workload. If you're trying to justify some funding for a new plans examiner, you can start to see the volume build for maybe your 2 existing plans examiners, and that their turnaround times are getting longer and longer and longer because you desperately need a new third plans examiner. Those reports for workload and things that we provide in the model can help you dramatically for some of those kinds of things even, right? So, okay, I've assigned these. Now, I'm going to click one open. I'm going to talk about the review results, and then we're going to start picking up the pace a little bit. Not because we're behind per se, but just because as we start moving, we start seeing similarities between the tasks, so we don't have to really train on them directly. I'm in the building plan review task. I'm I assign this to Krista. I'm going to pretend I'm Krista. Notice that the action by, maybe I'm doing data entry for Krista today. She left me, some documentation, so I'm going to do the data entry on her behalf. This is what I was talking about in the action by. For instance, she's a certified plans examiner. I am a permit tech. My name as a permit tech or somebody who is not certified to do plan review should not be listed here, because then it looks like, kind of in a larger government audit, it looks like somebody who wasn't certified did a plan review. Now, that's not the case. You just did the data entry, and you can tell them you just did the data entry. But ideally, the certified person, the plans examiner, the inspector, whomever it might be, should be the one signing off the plan review. If you're doing the data entry on their behalf, you need to make sure and change this information. Okay, so let's talk about plan review task status results. So on plan review, notice we have additional info needed and received again. Now, this isn't necessarily about intake materials anymore. We're past intake. Now this is the plans examiner. I'm pretending I'm Krista. This is Krista, the plans examiner. She went and pulled the plans out of the bin, and she's starting to do the plan review at her desk. And she realizes, boy, she really needs a copy of like maybe a material list, or she needs a cutout detail on something before she feels like she can do an effective plan review. So if she feels like she just needs maybe she wants a copy of the contract to maybe start looking at the valuation aspect of things, because it is here at plan review most typically that the valuation, if the calculator is involved, if it's new square footage in any way, shape, or form, it is here that typically we recommend that the plans examiner fills in the valuation calculator. Now, that doesn't always happen. The plans examiner might give the permit tech that information, and the permit tech needs to fill it out at completeness. That's okay too. But somewhere in the plan review process, the valuation calculator information needs to be determined. Whether it's by the permit tech, by the building official, by the plans examiner, somebody needs to know and enter that information by the time, or once you're at completeness, it will need to be filled in. Okay, so additional info needed. If the plans examiner needs more information, they can also ask for more information. All the same requirements are going to kick in. Additional info needed kicks off a mandatory email. We talked about that. That's one of 3 status results that kicks off a mandatory email to the applicant of record. Whatever they would be entering in the comment field would be sent to the applicant of record in the example, just like an app intake. And then once it was received to the front counter, now in this case, the permit tech sends an additional info needed, or excuse me, the plans examiner says they need maybe a copy of the contract, let's say. They do additional info needed, and a day or two later, the applicant brings it into the front counter. The permit tech is going to be the one receiving that, technically, right? Your plans examiner probably doesn't man the front counter. And so the permit tech asks that customer for their record number or their address. They search up the record. We open the record. We come to the building review because we see that additional info needed was requested, because this orange status right here would say additional info needed. So we'd see that. We'd open the task as a permit tech, and I'd say additional info received. And I would say copy of contract received in your inbox, or wherever you want to put it, or tell them to get it in the bin, wherever. And you would workflow notify them. And this is Krista. So I would workflow notify Krista. I can't get to Krista through here, but you get the idea. Okay. Again, huge helpful example on the most efficient way to use received, especially at plan review even, because the plans examiner asked for it. The permit tech wasn't even aware that something was asked for, but the customer brings it to the counter. Permit tech's the one receiving it. All right, other options for the plans examiner. They can simply approve it. They can unroll the plans, review the plans, and approve the plans. Yay, high five. If they approve it, I don't know if they do a plan review letter, but we hear a lot of agencies, they do a plan review letter. whether they are not approving it or they're approving it, they do this letter. The letter is not generated through Accela, just so everybody knows. There is no plan review letter report currently available in Accela. We've had requests for it, but we're not there yet. We haven't quite dialed in what it would include and things like that. So if they're approving and they need to send a plan review letter, the plan review letter is going to be something you generate outside of Accela. I highly recommend that if you do a plan review letter, if your agency does send the customer a plan review letter, whether it's email or snail mail, scan it and attach it to documents. I think that's great best practice in the building world in terms of documentation that's important to the permanent record. All right. They can approve it with conditions. Now, when they say approve with conditions, this comment box becomes required because you kind of said it had conditions, and this is comments and conditions. So you would say what those conditions are. Now, in this, I recommend that any plans examiner, you don't put the conditions here. Don't do that. Tell them, see conditions of approval. And you could tell them to go online using the link provided in this email. Oops, missed my bad typing. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So now this approve with conditions, by the way, it's not going to have, it is not going to have the applicant checked. That was only checked because I was showing you just momentarily the additional info needed. And so this got checked only because I was showing you that. In the event of approval with conditions, no mandatory email is generated, but I can elect to send an email to the applicant and to the owner, if I had an email here, and to the owner, and so on. I can choose to, as a plans examiner, to approve with conditions and tell them to see conditions of approval online using the link provided in the email. Remember, the email is going to have the deep link. Conditions of approval is right here. So if a plans examiner has conditions for final, they should put those conditions here. Don't type them in here, because this doesn't print or go anywhere, but this does. The conditions of approval are folded into or included in the issued permit. So I would go to conditions of approval. I'd hit the new button to start a new condition of approval. It asks what type. Well, it's a condition of approval. Don't get too wrapped around the axle with these. It's always condition of approval. It's kind of a silly extra step Accela gave us. And then I would pick the flavor of condition. Well, like what work group? There's more than one page, so don't forget to arrow through if you don't see the work group here. This is building. Building's the one that's adding some conditions here. Once I've added the text block, essentially, I have to populate it. And I do that by opening the condition of approval there. And I would add the information that whatever my conditions are as a plans examiner. And by the way, you have, this window looks a little different than it usually does. You have some format controls here, some paragraph alignment, numbered list, bulleted list, indent, outdent, text colors, and things like that. You can include hyperlinks. That's this little looking chain link. You can make a hyperlink maybe to your city website or your county website or whatever. Okay, so keep in mind you have lots of flexibility here as a plans examiner to enter a condition of approval. Notice though, you also have access to that comment library. So if you have standard comments, things that you often include in a plan review letter or the plan review approval communication to the applicant, send it to us. We'll add it to the comment library for you. Okay, so I'm just going to put in here Test, Krista, Stacy, and I'll just put our names in, Kelly. Oops. Okay, and I'm just going to save that. I mean, I would have put in whatever I needed as a condition. There we are. I save that as a condition of approval. I'm going to return down here to workflow. I'm going to open my building review I guess I didn't save that, that I had said approve with conditions. And I would have said see conditions of approval online using the provided link. And I would make sure to include my applicant. And they're going to get an email with a deep link, and I can then see that condition of approval online and read it as the applicant. Okay, so approved doesn't require comment. Approved with conditions does. So if there are any conditions of approval for final, approved with conditions should be used by the plans examiner. Some sort of reference to the condition of approval should be made, and then a condition of approval added to the record, in fact. Awaiting review. Forgive me, it's just a holding status. Kind of just what it says. It's just a way to communicate to the applicant, for instance. Awaiting review is just what it says. Maybe it's been assigned to Krista, but she has a whole bunch of plan reviews assigned to her. So she's maybe just going to acknowledge that she got it, it's assigned to her, and she's just going to mark it as a waiting review. She can even, tell the customer, your plan is my next review. Hope to start by Friday. You don't have to do this. It's just available to you. This will not advance the plan review task. It won't close it. Additional review will not advance or close. Approved is going to close the building review. Approved is a closing status. Approved with conditions will close the building review. It's a closing status. Awaiting review is what we call a parking or holding status. It's just communication to the applicant if you need to communicate to them somehow. Expired and withdrawn, we already talked about. Let's talk about not required. So maybe as a permit tag, you do parallel you say ready for plan review at intake. You do parallel tasks, you add building, planning, fire, let's say. Fire goes to the bin, pulls the plans, opens them, starts looking at them, and they're like, oh, we don't need to review this. So yeah, they were an assigned work group, but at the end of the day, they didn't need to review it. So they can just sign it off as not required. So if, by chance, you add somebody to a record, a plan review group that doesn't need to plan review, that's simply solved by them just signing it off as not required. Real quick, while I'm on that point, before I do anything else, if you realize after the fact when you did ready for plan review, you did parallel tasks, you put building and planning on, and then the building official says, hey, Kelly, fire needs to look at this too. The way to tag on a new group that you might have missed or not included initially, use task activation. Click any of the red tasks and you'll get parallel task again. Then I could tack on fire and save this and then cancel to leave task activation mode. And now fire's tacked on. Don't forget to assign them. I'm not going to right now, but don't forget to assign them. If you use task activation to camp on somebody that you forgot, you can easily do that through task activation. Okay, so let's get in here and start. We talked about all the plan review status options. We talked about not required. Last but not least is revisions needed and received. Kind of looks like additional info needed and received, but the huge difference between additional info and revisions. A revision is a request for a material change in the submitted plans. What that means is that the initial plan submittal is not approvable as submitted. So the plans examiner opens the initial plan submittal and says, oh, there's too much wrong with this, or what have you, according to code, or whatever they do in their plan review. I'm not a plans examiner, won't pretend to be. But it is not approvable as submitted. If the plan is not approvable as submitted, notice there's not a denied in here. We do not provide a denied plan review status because the intent of the building code is that you would work with the customer through the revision process until you get or reach an approvable plan. There is no denying. So the intent of the building code is help them get to an approvable plan through revisions. So if you can't approve the plan, I unroll it and it's not approvable, I need to ask them for revision, a material change in the actual plan submittal. Now, I don't cover this in Accela 101. I apologize. If any of you need more training or experience or knowledge most immediately on revisions, then just reach out to me either through the help desk or directly. Krista or Stacy as well. We can assist you. But revisions needed and received, notice there's an asking for it and then there's a receiving it. When you receive it, the system will create automatically a child record related to this parent record. It will be on the Related Records tab, and it only provides you with a clean slate to do plan review on the new submittal. So it's a plan review only record type. It allows you to document the plan review on the secondary. Okay, so I don't go any further into revisions, but here's all the plan review status options we've talked about. Not required, by the way, is a closing status. It will close this review task. I'm going to go ahead and do the straight up approved, submit it. It's going to close the building review task. Approved. It's now green. It's in the completed task section. I'm going to minimize it. And then I'm going to minimize my completed task. Now we're waiting for planning and fire to sign off. So now we've already talked about this plan review status results. We've gone through and trained on these, so I'm just going to tear through these now. I'm just going to approve planning. Because they might have time to review at different intervals in time, right? Building was able to review it right away, but planning was a little bit behind. They have a whole bunch of work going on right now, and so they couldn't review it for a couple days, and so they reviewed later. And now finally fire is maybe the last work group to approve or to review. And they approve with conditions, maybe we reference conditions of approval, and fire will go and add a condition of approval as well, because there's a different condition of approval that will be labeled for the fire work group. So conditions of approval can be tied to the specific work group that is requiring them. Okay, so just a reminder on that. I'm going to go ahead and just simple approve. Oh, and you know what I didn't do? I didn't show you the task specific information on plan review tasks. So before I get to the next step here, I'm going to just zip down to workflow history. So not workflow, but workflow history. I'm going to open the building review task that we've already approved. This is a running history, time and date stamped, who signed off what, and how long they had it. Notice these say 0 because those tasks were assigned and closed in the same day. So turnaround time, we talked about that, such an important measure of building department success. That in possession time would show the number of days. So anyway, just a side note. I'm going to open the building review task. By the way, I cannot change the status. If you resulted it wrong, that cannot be changed in workflow history. However, I can edit the comment. Approved by my partner. I'm just making something up here. I can't edit or add to or append to the workflow task comment and save that, by the way. But I want to show you that I can't kick off workflow email. The only thing that kicks off workflow email or allows you to send a workflow email is a status result update. And I can't update the status result here. So therefore, I cannot initiate or kick off a workflow email from workflow history. But the task specific information is here. I forgot to show it to you when we were actually in the review task. My apologies. So remember I said below workflow email, a lot of the workflow tasks have task specific information. The building review task has some read-only information. That was the square footage kind of stuff we entered at intake. But then there's other information they can actually fill in and record. They can record as per the plans, the dwelling area, the garage area, the number of bedrooms and bathrooms and floors and deck area, and if it was dry rot repair, this feeds a little report. But they can fill in the energy measures. Everybody asks us, hey, Kelly, energy measures are a requirement of building codes. Why don't you guys have anywhere for us to record that information? We do. It's in the plan review task. So the plans examiner can record the energy measures. If it was 2021 and forward, so if the application came in January 1st, 2021 or forward, you would use this drop down. If the application was 2017, I know this is kind of a little cookie, the 2017 ORSC code and prior, then you have to use these drop downs. I mean, of course, we just created this record in the year 2022. It is not going to be, it was not reviewed as per 2017 ORSC. It's going to be reviewed under the 2021 Oregon Residential Specialty Code. So I would fill in this energy measure. These come directly from building code. These, the values here. So I would, fill that in, or, I don't know, advanced envelope, let's just say. And then I can save my changes, because maybe as a plans examiner, I forgot to put that information in before I approved it. Well, the task is closed now. I can't edit it. It's closed. It's done. But I can go into workflow history and I can edit the workflow comment, and I can fill in any task-specific information I may have missed or forgotten. I can't change a status result though. So if you accidentally approve something and you shouldn't have, you have to use a function called supervisor. I do not train on that in SLO 101. If you need help with that, just reach out to myself, Krista, or Stacy directly. Okay, so now we're at completeness. All the plan reviews are done. So now we're at the administrative task that belongs to the plans examiner. By the way, I want to show you in the My Task page, we have a filter for completeness. Permit text, use this filter. This helps notify you when the plan reviews are done. So it prevents somebody having to come physically say, oh, hey, Kelly, I just finished a plan review on record at 123 Main Street. Okay, great. I can use the completeness filter to see, and I can sort it by date, like the oldest to the newest or newest to oldest. Here's our record right up here at the top that just went into completeness. Because completeness typically belongs with the permit tech. I mean, 99% of the time, or some sort of, front counter type person, whoever is responsible for processing the application or the permit. So this completeness filter in workflow tasks of the My Task page, I think is imperative. As a permit tech, I don't know how I would do business without it, to tell you the truth, because unless somebody was just always kind of verbally telling me or sending me emails or leaving me phone messages, I mean, what a mess to have to track all those pieces of communication rather than just coming into the system and looking at records that are in completeness. I can also sort them by the status. That makes a difference, I'll tell you. The ones that are in review have not been processed by the permit tech. The ones that are in ready to issue have already been processed by the permit tech, and they're now waiting for payment and pickup. So I can sort by record status. That might be helpful too. So I know which ones I have to, do. Here, I can flip-flop this. I know which ones, I have to work on first. Okay, back here, completeness. Completeness is the task, administrative task, that allows the permit tech to get everything ready to issue. So I want to make sure, collate the plans, make sure they're all stamped and approved, and ready to hand a stamped approved set to the customer, to the applicant at issuance. And I need to get the issuance fees ready. So now we're going to talk about the calculator. I had suggested that it is best practice that the plans examiner, during plan review, when they have the plans unrolled and reviewing, that they fill in the calculator. Now, that doesn't always happen. Sometimes they feed the permit tech that information to fill in. Sometimes the permit tech has the training, knowledge, and experience to fill in the calculator. It's kind of all over the board. We have all kinds of varying levels of experience and expectations of who's going to do the calculator. Whoever does the calculator, we don't care, but whoever does the calculator, it needs to be done by completeness. So let's say the permit tech or the plans examiner gave the permit tech some sort of write-up or something that included the information for the calculator. So I am going to add a row. It's a table, so to speak. I have to pick the occupancy. So this is the experience, the certification as a plans examiner that they have. Now, a lot of permit techs, certified permit techs, or even not certified permit techs, they know this, they've learned it, what have you, whatever works. Whoever's filling this in. So in this case, this is R3, 1 and 2 family. This is a bonus room addition. The construction type is VB. In my experience, I know this. So, and the square footage we're adding is 600 square feet. The current version of the, remember I mentioned, gosh, from maybe session 1 or 2, but a reminder that building departments are required by rule to adopt the most current ICC valuation table as of April 1st every single year. So never, ever, ever include the valuation table in your published fee schedule. It's going to be a problem for you, because if you publish the ICC valuation table in your adopted fee schedule, you're going to have to go back to adoption every March to re-adopt the new valuation table. So I tell agencies when I do fee analyses, never include the ICC table in your adopted schedule, simply refer to it by rule. And we actually have a little code snippet citation that we tell you to include in your fee schedule. That way you don't have to go to adoption every year to adopt the new ICC table every March before April 1st. Because we load it to the software April 1st automatically for you. You don't really get to choose to adopt it or not. It's there. So any records coming in April 1st or later are going to be subject to the current valuation rates. Can I change the version? Yes, I can go back in version. This would be a decision specifically of the building official if it met rule or not. So if I went back to 2021 version, notice the unit cost went down to 130 a square foot for R3VB. But we are currently at 22. Now it's $150. No surprise it went up, right? The cost of housing and everything right now is through the roof. So the unit cost is $150 a square foot for R3VB. So the calculated job value for 600 square feet of R3VB is $90,522. So I would save these two, or, save what I filled in. Now you can add multiple rows. So I just want you to know how to use a valuation calculator. So in new commercial or commercial construction, it's often multi-use. And so you often have to add multiple rows, like one part of the commercial building is going to be used for educational, and then the downstairs floor is going to be used, I don't know, a daycare facility or mercantile or business. It depends on the use. These are all defined in the code. I do have a cheat sheet for these if you are kind of interested in at least basically learning what they are and what each one is for and when it would be used, and the same here. It's just code information, but it's super helpful. So if you're interested in that, maybe reach out in the chat and Krista or Stacy can get your name documented and I'll send it out to you. Okay, so in commercial or in new 1 and 2 family construction. So in new 1 and 2 family house, if I'm building a brand new house, I'm going to have at least 3 or 4 rows minimally in the valuation calculator. And a brand new house is new square footage, so the valuation calculator applies. Now, in the case of new 1 and 2 family dwelling construction, well, we wouldn't be using a structural record type, generally speaking. We'd be using a DWL record type. That's our combo new 1 and 2 family record type. It includes all the trades, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing, for whatever your agency has program authority for. Meaning if you don't have electrical program, it doesn't include electrical, in short. Nonetheless, new 1 and 2 family construction, you have to use the calculator value. That's how it reads in rule. It's not the higher of the two. Not in the case of new 1 and 2 family dwelling. The requirement is explicitly you have to use the calculator. So in new 1 and 2 family dwelling, I have habitable space, which is R3VB. And then I probably have some utility, well, I have the garage, 200 square foot garage. And then I probably have some, maybe I have an attached porch. Oops. Anything that's attached has to be included. Attached garage, attached porch, anything attached shop, whatever you're doing. And you just start putting in each of the values. Now, commercially, there's also like hazardous spaces, like a paint store. So a paint store might have, 5,000 square feet. And 2,000 square feet is going to be used for the mercantile or the business side of their business, like the front office side of the paint sales. But the back 3,000 square feet are storage of all of the paint and paint thinner and supplies and yada, all highly flammable kinds of things. So the other 3,000 square feet are going to be listed maybe in here. Low hazard, moderate hazard, high hazard, what have you. I don't pretend to be an expert in occupancy and type, but I just want to kind of talk about it, like the reason, the logic, the purpose behind it, how it gets filled in. I'm going to delete these 2 excess rows that I don't want. I'm going to stick with our R3VB 600 square feet. We don't need multiple rows for this because it's literally 600 square feet of habitable space in the bonus room. I'm going to save that again. So now at completeness, I've filled in the calculator. The rule for structural additions is that you would use, when it's new square footage addition, you would use the higher of the 2. That's how the rule reads. So I'm going to go to fees. Remember, I already assessed plan review and collected it on the $60,000 that the contractor submitted. Now that I'm in completeness, remember we're in completeness, I'm still talking about completeness, where we have to get the issuance fees ready. Part of getting the issuance fees ready is making the decisions and filling in the calculator when the calculator applies and getting this squared away. By the way, even if the calculator doesn't apply, let's say we're doing a remodel and alteration, the plans examiner, once they do the plan review, they could come back and say this contractor value is way lowball. This needs to be around 80K. If the plans examiner or the building official has given you some direction to edit the contractor submitted job value because the calculator does not apply, you can edit the contractor submitted job value by clicking that tab and making a change. So just a note on that. So now we're at completeness. We're getting issuance fees ready. I'm going to go back to the fee tab because I just filled in the calculator. I know the rule for additions is higher of the 2. I'm going to flip the fee calc factor because the rule reads higher of the 2. 90K is higher than 60K. So I'm going to flip it to 90K and my fees are going to totally recalculate. So now this went up, this was 400 and something. My permit fee was recalculated on the increased valuation. And notice plan review. My plan review fee that I collect, that was assessed on 60K, automatically voided to credit, and a brand new recalculated plan review fee increased. You can see the difference, 264 to 343, was assessed. Before I do anything, the minute you ever flip the fee calc factor when you're getting fees ready for issuance, or at any point in time you ever have to change the fee calc factor and the fees recalculate, is you have to immediately re-invoice that structural plan review because it got voided to credit and recalculated. I have to immediately re-invoice it. I need to go to my payments. I already took payment at intake. I took 264.49. I need to checkbox that payment that was already made because notice when it voided my original plan review fee, it voided it to credit. So that payment became unapplied. It became a credit. Amount not applied, 264.49. So I need to checkbox that payment that has an available credit hit the apply button, and apply that $264.49 to my new plan review fee. Because I have already at least collected the $264.49. I need to still give the customer credit for money I already took in. So I'm applying it to the newly recalculated plan review fee and submitting to save that. So now the customer would owe us $78.58 in difference. That's the difference in the two plan review fees. And we're going to collect that at issuance. That's what we're getting the fees ready for. I'm going to go back to fees. So I've already paid down the structural plan review by $264.49, which leaves a balance of $78.58 still to collect at issuance. But I also need to collect the permit fee and the state surcharge. So they're not invoiced yet. So I need to invoice those, getting them ready to pay or making them available to be paid. Okay, so review, completeness. I need to make sure the plans are ready for pickup, stamped, collated. I need to get the fees ready. I need to fill in valuation, make decisions about which applies or if the calculator applies at all. Might not apply at all, like in an alteration. But I need to decide, finalize valuation, and I need to get the issuance fees ready to go. I need to invoice them to make them available to be paid, either over the counter or online. Anything else you need to do to make the record ready to issue. Now I come back to completeness. I've done everything I need to do, and I'm going to make this ready to issue. Notice I can still ask the customer again for additional info. This works just like additional info on any other task. If for some reason I'm not ready to issue it, the plans haven't been returned to me yet. So both the plan reviews got signed off and it went to completeness. I went to my tasks as a permit tech. I saw it was in completeness. I opened the record, but nobody's turned the plans back into me yet. They're not even in the bin. I can result completeness as a waiting plan check-in, because sometimes even though the plans got signed off in the system, the physical plans have not been returned to you. And then withdrawn. We know withdrawn's available every task in the entire workflow. I am going to have her make this ready to issue. Notice I get a lot of red again. Oh, and notice a balance. Comment is required, and the system has automatically dropped this in for you. You got the issuance fees ready to go, and it dropped in the total balance. Now, this is the second of required mandatory emails that the system sends to the applicant of record. The first result that always initiates a mandatory email is additional info needed. I'm going to tell you now the second status result in plan review that will mandatorily send an email to the applicant of record is revisions needed. We don't train on revisions in this Accela 101, but that is the other. And the third and last status result in workflow that initiates a mandatory email to the customer of record or the applicant of record is ready to issue. This is going to send an email to the applicant of record whether I want to or not. Again, best practice to always send them an email and letting them know whether you called them or you emailed them outside of Accela or you talked to them at the counter, whatever, it is best practice to record that here and just send them an email, to remind them maybe or whatever. Even if you'd called them on the phone and told them, hey, you can come pick up your plans, well, just follow up by putting the same information here. No harm, no foul. And in fact, it is ideal record keeping, right? So here you would say your plans are ready to issue. Please pay issuance fees. Now, you got to tell them how you want them to pay. Please pay issuance fees at our office. We do not currently, we only accept cash or check payment for balances greater than $5,000. Okay, so let's talk about that momentarily. If you allow them to pay online the fees, just so you know, there will be a credit card. There'll be a credit card processing fee. That is global in the world. Anytime you pay with a credit card, sometimes it's passed back to the customer. We can't do that, unfortunately, in e-permitting in Accela. We have contracts with the credit card companies that don't allow us to pass the credit card processing fee on to the customer. And so in that case, the agencies are paying that. You guys are paying that if they're paying online. So your agency may or may not have a policy about how high. So some agencies have like a $5,000 cutoff where they won't accept credit card payments greater than $5,000 because they don't want to pay the processing fees for those. Processing fee averages around 3%, between 2 and 3%. The higher the balance, the higher the processing fee. And some agencies don't want that. Now, that's a part of doing business. I'm not going to lie to you. That is part of doing business, to allow people to pay with a credit card. Over the counter, you still get the processing fee. It's not just because it's online credit card, it's credit card. So even if they pay you over the counter with a credit card, you're paying a processing fee. So there's kind of, no winning on taking credit card payments, and paying with credit card is part of doing business. So either those internal costs, those processing fees get built into your fees. Your fees are a little like the actual permit fees and things, because that's a cost of doing business, or you use our tech fee option in the software. If that perks your interest or something you've heard your agency talking about at all, you can reach out to us about tech fee. But let's talk about this. So you need to give them, bottom line, instructions where and how to pay and where to pick up their approved plans. So in this case, I'm going to say, please pay online using the provided link in this email. Pick up your approved plans at our office at, 123 Main Street or whatever. And you can tell them, between the hours of, 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. or, whatever it is, you need to give them instructions on how to pick up their approved plans and how and where to pay. Now, the other part of the payment side, some agencies kind of have like, a $5,000 cutoff or some sort of, cutoff maximum for when they don't want to take a credit card. Now, keep in mind, that's credit card online or credit card over the counter. It doesn't matter where you're taking it. Instead, it's credit card. Some agencies won't allow credit card payment for SDCs because they're extremely high dollar in a lot of cases, or for any kind of pass-through fee like CET, the school construction excise or affordable construction excise. Some of those fees that are more of a pass-through, an agency is not benefiting from the revenue of that fee collection, they're passing it on to the school district. So why would they shoulder or take on the credit card processing fee for money that's not even their revenue? That's like paying out of pocket, right? So a lot of agencies won't accept credit cards for SDCs and CET fees. If that's the case, you would invoice those separately, and you would make reference to that specifically here. Please pay your permit fees online. Our policy is to pay cash or check for SDCs and school CET. Please pay at our office. Those, balances are not included in this total. If you invoice them separately after, the key is after you've made the record ready to issue, then the balance here will not include those totals. If you invoice CET and SDC fees before you make the record ready to issue, they will be included in the balance. And then you might have to manually edit the balance to remove them. If you have some sort of rule about not accepting credit cards for SDCs or school CET. All right, so you get the idea here. We're sending them how to pay, how to pick up their plans. It is going to automatically be emailed to the applicant of record. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll up to get my buttons. Okay, completeness just turned green. You can see the outline over here. I'm going to try to scroll back up, minimize completeness. So now let's kind of get a picture. Where are we? So we did the intake, plan review happened, completeness, now they pay. So I'm going to start picking up the pace here just so I can get to the C of O conversation. So fees, I'm going to go ahead and say they come to the counter. I'm going to go ahead and take a payment for their total fees. Yeah, come to the counter to make a payment, you know, whatever. And I'm going to go ahead and process that. This time the applicant, Heidi, is the one paying, and I'm going to go ahead and process that payment. Okay, so now their balance is 0. The balance has to be 0. There can be no outstanding unpaid fees when you go to issue the record. If you go to issue and there are any outstanding unpaid fees, the issuance script will fail and it will not issue the permit. You have to have full payment in order to issue. That's also in the building code, by the way. So just a side note on that. So they paid. They're standing at my counter, and I'm going to go ahead and issue this. I'm going to open the permit issuance task. Expired, withdrawn, we know what those are. I can set issuance back to ready to issue if for some reason there's some sort of something going on and I need to pause the workflow again. I can make it ready to issue again and give our agency maybe more administrative time to finish something or what have you. However, permit issued, I'm going to go ahead and issue it. I want to draw your attention to task-specific information. Just make sure and look down here. So is the owner doing their own work? This is another reminder. Yes, they are. Okay, well then if I said yes, it says, do you have the owner affidavit on file? The owner affidavit is the CCB responsibilities, contractor responsibilities form that's required. So if the owner's acting as their own contractor, we already talked about this, they should be indicated in the professional as an owner professional. We've created that owner professional. And you should say yes here. And yes, you collected the CCB form. In best practice, I would scan that form in and attach it to documents, but that's up to you. Here's where moisture content high efficiency lighting form is recorded. So did you collect a moisture content form? Yes, no, or not applicable. Did you collect high efficiency lighting form if it's applicable? Yes, no, or applicable. Remember, it does not validate, doesn't care whether you answer yes, no, or otherwise. You're just recording that you actually did this. These are required forms in some cases. And if you did collect these, would scan them in and put them in documents, but that's up to you. Okay, so now we are going to try to get up here to get to the buttons to issue. So as soon as I hit submit, it should pop up and generate the permit report. I noticed that I'm already having problems with pop-ups in my browser right now with the upgrade. So just a note, it might not pop up. And it didn't. So it would pop up. I just don't have my browser. I need to reset my pop-ups. By the way, we're learning with the upgrade today that you probably have to reset your pop-ups. Even if you already had a said allow pop-ups for Accela, you have to probably go into your browser and say allow them again. Because with the upgrade, for some reason, that seems to be resetting on the browsers. And it did for me because it's
the links earlier at the beginning of the session.
Thank you. Thank you, Krista. I appreciate that. So Krista included directions on how to allow pop-ups in the chat. All right, so it didn't pop up for me, so I'm going to go into documents and see if it attached here. It didn't. So in the event that the pop-up fails, either for a receipt or for the permit or what have you, you can go to the Record Summary tab. There is a Reports drop-down right here, and I can manually generate the building permit. So if something fails to generate, but the workflow continues to process, you can go to Record Summary, Reports drop-down, and generate the certificate of occupancy or generate the permit. Whatever failed to generate for you, you can generate from Record Summary reports. So here's the permit. Only thing I want to point out, other than all the standard stuff that comes out of the code requirements, it has to be on the permit, is the fees are included and the valuation information is included if the calculator was selected. And then last but not least, we added a condition of approval, if you remember, a condition of approval for building. The building plans examiner had some conditions, and remember we wrote in this silly text here. So whatever conditions of approval had been indicated by any of the plans examiners from any of the work groups, it would be displayed and included on the permit. The permit's considered to be the permanent document of record. All right. And by the way, the option when it generates to email it. I highly recommend you email it, even if they didn't ask you to. Again, I would just say that that is best practice. Before they even ask you to email a copy, email it. Because it pops right up when it generates in workflow. Now I'm in inspection because I just issued the permit. But it pops right up right at that time. Just go ahead and email it to the applicant and owner or anybody else attached to the record application. It will end up saving you phone calls and work later on. They're probably going to ask you for a copy of it. I want to let you know that when you generate the permit at Permit Issuance, you could send them a workflow notification email telling them that their permit is available to download online using the link included in the email. So again, that deep link comes in handy again. You can initiate a workflow email from the Permit Issuance task when you result it as permit issued, and you can elect, it wouldn't be mandatory, but you can elect to send that to the applicant and the owner, and you could put in the comment, you can download your issued permit online using the link included in this email. And then you don't even have to send them a printed copy. Just saying. So you definitely have options. But again, don't forget, you had to give them some sort of instructions on how and where to pick up their approved plan. Now, if you're doing electronic plan review, because we offer Bluebeam free to all of our participating agencies, which is the premier electronic plan review software. So if you aren't using it yet, know that it is free for you to use. You just have to put in a help desk request. We'll get you set up with Bluebeam. Electronic plan review is what it does. If you're doing electronic plan review, whether using Bluebeam or something else outside of Accela, we don't care. But if you're doing electronic plan review, when you go to issue the permit, you're going to want to tell them to go download their approved plan online using the link provided in the email. Because at that point, when you have an electronic approved plan, you should most definitely be saving the final approved plan to the documents on the record. Anything in documents, the customer can access online and download and print themselves. So a little bit more powerful using workflow email notification is rather than your agency printing them and sending them stuff and is you can give them instructions to go online, to go download and print things themselves. Anything you attach to documents. Okay? All right. So now we're at inspection process. This is just a placeholder while inspections are being scheduled over here on the inspection tab. I'm going to show you very quickly, because we're right at noon, how to schedule an inspection in the back office. So as a permit tech, how do you schedule an inspection? I'm going to show you how to do that. You go to Manage Inspections. Sorry. Sorry if you can get the extra noise. Got a lot going on outside. My apologies. So manage inspections, add schedule. It will load the inspection scheduling screen. You'll make a selection what inspection the customer needs to schedule. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and schedule final building, which is right at the top because it's the most commonly scheduled inspection. And I'm going to say add schedule. And it's going to pull up a scheduling window. Minimally, all I have to fill in is the blue banner. Minimally. So if you're just in a quick hurry, you got people waiting in line at the counter, you got phone calls on hold or whatever, and you need to be scooting along, minimally you have to fill in the blue banner. You have to assign the inspection to an inspector, which in this case our fake inspector, and called his name is inspector, and it defaults to same day. So it defaults to today. So note, that's very important. Some people miss that and they forget to set the date. There's a calendar widget where you can pick the date, set it for tomorrow. There's also this get next working day. That's ideal. So you can just say get next working day and it'll immediately move it ahead of date. This time, scheduled start time, does not have any bearing. This does not apply. Sorry, I'm taking a quick screenshot of something there. This does not apply. We do not do appointment level scheduling. So that's why we set this to like midnight, middle of the night, something that's totally unreasonable, right? Okay, so minimally I have to fill in the blue banner. I could say submit and this will be scheduled. However, if you want to schedule or if you want to document any of the other details like who requested it, the requester, it's defaulting in your name because you're the permit tech or whoever you are. You're the office person that is scheduling it. So it takes your user information, logged in user, and it drops it in here. However, if you're on the phone with somebody, sure, I might be the one scheduling it, but I'm on the phone, you know, with Tina Smith. She's the office person from the contractors that's calling and scheduling, and her phone number, you know, I'm putting in fake whatever. But the inspection contact, I have to ask Tina, so who's going to be on the job site for our inspector to work with? You know, and it's going to be Joe Schmo. And his contact number is, you know, let's put a bunch of numbers, right? And then any sort of request comment, by the way, AM, PM is only a request. You do not have to guarantee that. We tell everybody that ever calls us, contractors, asking about scheduling or anything, that it is never guaranteed, that it is up to the agency and it depends on their volume. So I could say AM requested because that's what Tina asked for, but I can tell Tina, hey Tina, it depends on how many inspections we have tomorrow and how many of them request AM. We'll let you know if AM won't work. And I submit to schedule up here at the top. But again, minimally, if you have to really fly, blue banner is all you need and submit. It's been scheduled. It's finishing the process. Tells me it's been scheduled successfully. There it is. Final building inspection's been scheduled. It's scheduled for tomorrow. Again, the start and end time doesn't matter. It's been assigned to Inspector Mr. Building, and they requested AM. I could go to my tasks, go to the inspection tab, and change this to tomorrow's inspections. And there it is, scheduled for tomorrow. And as a permit tech or an inspection lead or the building official or whatever, lead inspector, I can start to keep track how many people are requesting AMs or PMs or whatever. Because if you have 100 inspections, like I think you guys saw maybe in one of my examples I opened Deschutes County, they had like 240 inspections for one day. I mean, if every, you know, even if a quarter of those people are requesting AM and it's the same inspector, depending, I mean, they have a lot of inspectors, don't get me wrong, but if there's just too many people in the AM versus the PM, it's just not feasible that you might be able to get to them all in the AM. You might not be able to guarantee this. And in that case, you might need to, you know, click into their record, give them a call and let them know that, do they want to reschedule because you can't accommodate the AM request. You'd call Tina here and let her know. rescheduler, or maybe she says, okay, fine, whatever. We can do PM. So that's how you schedule inspections. That's how you use My Tasks on the Inspection tab, filters, to look at various things that are scheduled today, tomorrow, things that have been resulted. It'd be about the logged in user. If I was an inspector, I could use these filters to look at my specific work, assigned work. Every inspection gets assigned. It has to be assigned, for the inspector to use our inspector app out in the field. They have to have a list of assigned inspections, and they have to download their job list when they go into the field. The only way they can download a job list is it has to be assigned, and they have to know it's assigned to them. Okay, last piece, because I know I'm a few minutes over and I do apologize. Let's go back to workflow. So we do all the inspections. The inspection process, when I go to sign this off, by the way, I would sign it off as inspection process complete 9 times out of 10. When I do that, the scripting is going to look for an approved final inspection. If I do not have an approved final inspection, this will fail to close, or the record will fail to final. Let me put it that way. So I would need to have a resulted inspection. So I'm simply going to click that inspection open on the inspection tab, and I am going to result it like I'm an inspector. We don't train on this piece, but I'm just going to, get it done so we have an approved inspection on the record. So it got approved, and it gives me the option to email the result to the applicant of record. I don't want to, so I'm going to cancel out of that. I'm back to where I was. I'm going to return to my record. Now it has been signed off. Why isn't it showing the result? Maybe I'm missing it, but there should be an approved result. Did I not approve it? Oh, approved. It just didn't update. There it is. Okay, great. So in workflow, inspection process. Let's talk about the results here extremely fast. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to inspection process complete, just so you know. If for some reason you're waiting scheduling, it's just a holding status. You can communicate that you're awaiting scheduling for some reason. Expired and withdrawn, we already know they're everywhere. Under inspection is also parking or holding status. It doesn't advance the workflow to the next task. It's just communication. Under inspection just pretty much says it's under inspection. People ask me, hey, Kelly, do I have to result it as under inspection? Not at all. But some agencies prefer that. They see it as some sort of check and balance. Maybe that a particular person looked at the record or prepared the record or whatever. Sometimes it could be a step in the process. I can receive revisions post-issuance. That is a possibility that you might receive an addendum post-issuance, not one that you asked for, but one that the customer elects to bring in. Hey, we put in this bonus room addition for 600 square feet, and they bring in a revised plan. They decided they want to make it 800 square feet. So you can process a revision post-issuance, just so you know that that's an option. Stop work. Inspector gets out into the field and starts doing inspections, and they're building a 3rd story on the house that was never approved or whatever. So you put a stop work order. You can use stop work here in the inspection process. If they are almost finished, almost ready to final, but they are requesting temporary occupancy, you initiate temporary occupancy through the inspection process task. So when the contractor, applicant, owner requests temporary occupancy prior to final, you can initiate temporary occupancy. We don't train on this either in Accela 101, so if you need help or training on this, please reach out to us. I'm an inspection process complete. There's some information it's telling me I have to fill out down below, so I'm going to look down below here. I have to say for sure now, did I get moisture content? Yes, no, or not applicable. And did I get the high efficiency lighting? Now it's required because you are getting ready to close this record. And if those forms are required, depending on the scope of work, then you need to have made sure you collected them. Again, it doesn't, even if I said no, it's still going to let me final this record. Doesn't validate that information. Submit to close the inspection process. I don't know what error happened. Jeez. Right at the tail end here too. Let me just try. All I did was refresh the task. I'll just say NA here just to hustle. I don't know what's going on. All right, it doesn't matter right at the end. Workflow, I want to let you know that the CVO, ignore what I'm doing right now. I'm just going to very quickly turn on the task manually so that I can demonstrate it to you very quickly. Oops. You don't have to do that part. I just needed to turn on certificate of occupancy task so I could talk about this very briefly. So certificate of occupancy task, if a C of O is required, remember a C of O is required anytime new square footage is added. So a brand new structure in whole, a new bedroom, a new bonus room, any new square footage to the footprint requires occupancy. So certificate of occupancy. The C of O requires that the calculator be filled in. So even if you didn't use the calculator for fees, meaning you didn't use the valuation in the calculator, the C of O still requires the calculator be filled in because it pulls the occupancy and use information from this tab to populate the C of O report. Okay? If inspections are complete or this isn't applicable, if there's no C of O required, then you just say NA and it closes the record. But if you need a C of O, depending on the scope of work and the type of work, then you would issue the C of O. It's not going to let me because for some reason my inspection failed, but I am going to go to record summary like I showed you just to be able to demonstrate, and I'm going to go to reports and I'm going to manually issue a C of O or generate a C of O. It's going to tell me it's not ready. It should have like a red banner at the top. Yep. Because we didn't finish the inspection process, you can't cheat the system. It's looking for some required elements. It's looking for an approved final inspection. It's looking for no outstanding unpaid fees. It's looking for no outstanding incomplete inspections. It's kind of making sure you cleaned house before it finals and issues certificate. So it's telling me has been issued because I'm cheating, right? And I just want you to know kind of what it looks like. All the elements that are on the C of O are required by building code, and some people say, hey, we want other information on the C of O. I think we've added a thing or two on here, like we added the parcel. Parcel is not a requirement of occupancy, but I think we added it a couple years ago by request. But we don't put a lot on here. We try to stay to the building code requirement. So just a side note. But if there's something super glaring that you think is missing and that is just a really helpful component, then, reach out, let us know. I can email and print this, and as soon as I generate it, it will be attached to the documents on the record in the Documents tab. I can then instruct the customer through workflow notification to go, when I'm issuing the C of O, like when I'm actually saying C of O issued, I can put a comment in here and say, please download your issued C of O using the link provided in this email. Don't have to print a C of O for them. Let them go print it themselves or let them print it as they need it. And then I can select the applicant and the owner or, whoever I want to give that direction to. And there's also something else that needs to be filled out. By the way, the C of O is populated by this required task-specific information. And when I said C of O issued at the top, it pointed me down here. So I do have to say, new bonus room. I have to say what portion of the building I'm granting occupancy to. New bonus room addition, 600 square foot. I have to say if there's any special conditions, like maybe residential fire system installed. That's kind of a special condition. Property is in the floodplain. That's kind of a special condition. Or in a historic district. You know, whatever. This special conditions is not required. It's up to you. It'll also ask you if you verified the licensed professionals had valid licenses. It will ask you if all related records have been finalized, meaning electrical, mechanical, plumbing. On the C of O, it will show those related records. And then was the property owner responsible for any portion of the project? This is that last double, triple check that if the property owner was doing their own work, that you've collected the required CCB form. I can't actually process this task because our inspection result failed for some reason I don't want to waste your time on. And I do truly apologize. I've gone over, but I wanted to get us to C of O. So are there any questions? It looks like a lot of people unfortunately had to leave a few minutes back, but is there any other questions or any other, not necessarily about C of O, but about this in general, anything else that I can help to answer or that you'd like me to email more information on or anything? No? Okay, no pressure. You might ask questions later after we're done and you start doing some more of this, and then you'll go, oh man, I should have asked Kelly about that one status on workflow. I never know what that's for. Or I need to ask her about some help with some fee stuff, or help with the revision because we don't train on revisions, or how to initiate a TCO, temporary occupancy, because we didn't train on that. So anything else at all that you need, please don't hesitate to reach out. Please use the knowledge base through Kayako. I have it open here really quick. I'm just going to put the link to it. I don't know if Krista might have already. Do what?
That's our side.
I didn't hear you. Sorry.
That's our side.
No, it's not. Not without the staff part on it. So I didn't copy the staff piece of the link. So thank you though for reminding me of that. So this is the link to our knowledge base. I'm sorry, I'm circling here. I think you can see it on my screen in the chat. This is directly, to our help desk. But as soon as you go to our help desk, you have access to the training knowledge base. You can do keyword searches to look for training information on most everything. I'm not going to say everything because we could write hundreds and hundreds of training documents to cover it all. So if you're having trouble with anything, really at all, don't hesitate to reach out to myself, Stacy, or Krista, or through the help desk, and we will get you fixed up. Thank you, everybody, for attending the full series. I know it's a lot of hours of training, and it's a ton of information, and I know I've gone a little bit over. I do truly apologize, but I hope there's been lots of new information for you guys. And again, if there's anything we didn't cover that you have questions about or need help with, reach out. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much.
Don't forget to stop the recording.
Doing it now. Thank you.